Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended lifeforms are so amazingly primitive that two of them still think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. These podcasters have, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Actually, this is the solution.
Two men, two amazingly primitive men, thought this was a pretty neat idea. They were dreamers, thinkers, speculative philosophers, or as their wives would have it, idiots.
Hey, Jeff. So, what is this?
Well, Brian, this is where we're going to talk about our annual excursion to the Fan EXPO convention in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when we first did the first one, I think we reported about maybe 2 conventions, maybe 3.
Yes.
Because they were close together,
Right.
And we were able to go and swap cities and attend different conventions. But
Right.
This time you came out to the great state of New Jersey and the fine city of Philadelphia, and we attended the Fan EXPO in Philly.
Yes, we did. And overall, on the first day, for me, it started out with nothing but disappointment after disappointment.
Well, oh, yes, I have to agree with that completely. We certainly had a different experience this year than we've had with Fan EXPO in the past, and frankly with regular conventions that we've attended in the past. This one was unique in a number of ways, and many of them not as good.
Right. So to start off with part of the problem, and this is nothing really that Fan EXPO could control because they can only get the venues when they can get the venues, but their Philadelphia convention got bumped to later than usual, and their Denver convention got bumped earlier than usual, and coincidentally they landed on the same weekend.
I know. And when we inquired about that, we did find someone had a small bit of knowledge about it. They indicated that the Denver convention usually takes place around the 4th of July.
Right.
And I wasn't quite sure how that exactly attached, but obviously the 4th of July celebration this year is going to be spectacular while we celebrate the 250th year.
Yes.
Which is so bizarre because I was driving over the Ben Franklin Bridge and I saw a sign that said 250th anniversary or celebration or something like that. I'm like, didn't we just celebrate the 200th? Wasn't that just a few years ago?
Yeah, it was just 50 years ago.
50 freaking years ago, Jeff.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Holy moly, that just blew me away. I mean, I had a moment there where I realized how old I was.
Right. While driving a vehicle.
Yes, while driving a vehicle. on a bridge, no less, with multiple lanes of traffic.
Right. So the difficulty with having 2 conventions going at the same time for Fan EXPO is, one, they've only got so much staff. So they've got to split their staff between 2 different cities. There are only so many artists and celebrities that they can get for these things. And somehow they convinced some celebrities to spend 2 days in Denver, fly to Philadelphia, and spend 2 days in Philadelphia back to back.
Right, because the one thing that Denver had that Philly didn't have is they had a Thursday part of their venue.
Right. So kudos to those celebrities that decided to do that. Also, it happened that some of our favorite artists decided that Denver was the convention that they were going to go to
Right.
instead of the Philadelphia. So we
Right.
weren't able to say hello and see some artists that we, get to say hi to once a year.
That's right. I mean, and those illustrators and artists that we usually see were some of the ones that were not there. But on top of that, it was interesting. The first day, and one of the first things we did, and which we usually do, it's a little bit quieter. So we're able to walk the floor of the vendor room.
Right.
And I was surprised, although very well laid out, the density in the vendor room seemed light. The number of vendors that we're used to seeing didn't seem to quite match the space that they had available this year. On top of that, there were quite a few that seemed to be a repeat of themselves. I guess that happens over time anyway, but the number of people making small plastic charms and buttons seemed to be extraordinary this year.
Right. Well, if anybody has ever visited any kind of tourist area, out for you, it would be the New Jersey Boardwalk
Right.
or whatever,
Mhm, mhm.
and in Atlantic City. So you're walking down the boardwalk and you come across a souvenir shop.
Right.
And you stick your head in the souvenir shop and you go, oh my God, look at this. All of these special, unique to the Atlantic City boardwalk souvenirs, all these t-shirts and trinkets and gadgets and animals with funny clothes and funny hats and all of that. And you're like, wow, this is incredible.
Right.
And then you walk 50 feet and there's another store with all the same stuff.
Exactly.
And you walk 50 more feet
Mhm.
and there's another store
Mhm.
with all of the same stuff.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the same type of thing that you run into when you're walking through the vendor area at a fan convention.
Right. As I'm sitting here right now thinking about it, there's a lot more of the anime and manga. Is that how they say that?
Yes.
Images and characters and features. There were dolls and little plastic, like I said, keychains and buttons and that kind of stuff. And especially in the artist alley, they all seem to have not only the same stuff, but they were all laid out in a very specific way. They had like a picture frame opening in the middle, and the stuff that they were selling surrounded above them, beside them, and below them. So it looked
Right.
like they were standing inside a box, and you could buy things from them by handing them money,
Yes.
It was a little disconcerting, and I'm not sure exactly why. So it's interesting to me.
I guess another thing that is different for me or for us is that when I was growing up, I paid absolutely no attention to who voiced any animated character.
That's true.
There may have been people that did, but early in our convention experiences and only up until really lately, the voice acting and the anime voice acting was non-existent. And then it crept in a little bit, and now it's almost over half of the convention is voice actors and anime voice actors.
And they're very
Which-
popular. Very popular.
Well, that's why they're taking over the conventions now, and they have over half the celebrities are voice actors, which it's absolutely fine. But because I had absolutely no interest in it when I was a kid, I have difficulty wrapping my mind around anybody really worrying about who the voice actor is for an animated character on TV or in the movies.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. But to go back, what was our experience on Friday that kind of sort of tipped the tide for us as we started off the day?
Well, like every convention, they want to be able to find ways to charge you more money. So you can buy a single day pass, you can buy a 3-day pass, you can buy a ultimate pass, which is a 3-day pass with a little bit of extra perks that you have purchased. And then of course there is the VIP pass, which is a little bit more items and perks and an ability to jump the line.
Right.
Well, we opted for the ultimate pass, which gives us a place to sit down when we need to sit down because,
Yes.
we're old. And then, But you do get a couple of little perks, and one of the perks was supposed to be this tote bag.
Right.
And apparently in Philadelphia and in Denver, their supply of tote bags never showed up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they try to appease us with another extra little gift of one of being a t-shirt.
Right.
Which would be fine. Great. I'll take a t-shirt rather than a tote bag. And it's always while supplies last. And the supply of t-shirts did not last.
Well, yeah, and
we didn't get there late.
No, we were there on Friday. We were there in the early part of Friday. So, and the convention was not populated that densely at that time. But by the time we got to make our selection, the t-shirt sizes that remained were quadruple X and small.
Right. Right.
But each of us decided instead to get a small, handmade by robots, quilted version of 11 from Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I had seen it before, but it looked a little bit different. So I went ahead and got it. You went ahead and got it, and we took those as our special gift rather than our $10 off at the merchandise table, or I can't even remember what the other choice was.
Yeah, they had a couple of them. Some that we had before because they're leftovers from previous year's conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a Marty McFly from last year, I believe, that you could have picked if you wanted it.
Right, and what was interesting to me is later on in the convention, you even commented that wouldn't it have made sense that they could have gotten rid of the leftover bags from their previous conventions? They had to have had additional bags from previous years, previous conventions, but they didn't even think to bring those.
Right, yeah, you could have a t-shirt, a vinyl doll, a $10 coupon possibly for their store, or last year's bag. I mean, yes, or 3 years ago or two, whatever bags they had, they could have brought those, but that wasn't an option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, it was interesting.
And then, as I mentioned, a couple of the main artists that we see weren't in Philly because they opted for Denver, but there's a local artist that we see all the time that did not appear to be there Friday when we were walking around at 2:00 during the preview session.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness it turns out that he actually got there late, about 3:30, and he set up, and we just never happened to go past his area again on Friday because when we did our first go through, he was just, he's not here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But we did find out later that he was there, so that was a little bit more relieving.
Right.
And of course, got to spend some money with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll get into that. But you're right. So our first thing that we were going to attend at that convention on Friday was a sketch duel.
No.
Okay. It wasn't?
No. First thing was Goonies.
All right. Let me try it again then. So the first thing that we attended on Friday was the Goonies panel.
Yeah, without any Goonies. Well, maybe there was a Goonie or two.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sean Astin, Corey Feldman, and Kerry Green from the Goonies were all at this convention. And right at the beginning of the first day, they were supposed to do about a 45-minute long panel where you just get up and they tell stories and they get asked questions and you get to watch them goof around. And it's always entertaining. Well, I guess it maybe not always entertaining, but the norm is that it is very entertaining. So we're there and we're sitting and we're waiting and it's past its time. And eventually somebody comes out and says, "Oh, we're sorry. We're running late. Don't worry. They're on their way," type of thing. And then Sean Astin gets there and he's the only one.
Right.
And he sits down and he does about a 10-minute talk?
Yep, about 10 minutes.
15 at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a prior commitment, so he was off.
Right.
And Kerry Green and Corey Feldman had not shown up yet, but they're on their way.
Right.
But they're on their way.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't believe they actually ever did show up because we managed to wander out of the main stage area and back towards the autographed area. And
Right.
what do you know? In a line that wrapped halfway around the room, Corey Feldman was signing autographs.
Right. And I did not see where Kerry Green was. Kerry Green may have made it to the stage to give some sort of part of the panel, but because we had left, no way I could know.
Right. Absolutely.
Friday's a day that they only have one sketch duel, which is, if you've listened to previous episodes, our favorite part of Fan Expos.
Right.
You get to watch a couple of different artists talk about their craft, answer questions, tell us about how they got into the business, some stories about being in the business. And while that, they're drawing something that they give away in a raffle at the end of the session.
Mm-hmm.
So because that was at the end of the day, we had an entire day to kill, but we did our best. So we just kept wandering around to see what would happen.
Right. And I think we talked about it a little bit before, but we'll mention it here again. We submitted a subject that we thought would be interesting to discuss with the Fan Expo people. And we had hoped that they would choose us as moderators and allow us to present our concept to the group. And the whole time we were there on the weekend, we were trying to determine, well, if they didn't choose us, who did they pick?
Right.
But we couldn't find enough entertaining topics on the list that was happening on Friday to even keep us busy during those gaps of time that we had between the things that we knew we wanted to attend and of what we were able to attend.
Previous conventions had more and more what I will call discussion panels, where it's just a topic about a fandom and people on the dais are discussing their views on a certain topic. Now, it's a lot of workshops and cosplay and other things that it doesn't matter if I don't have an interest in them because it's for everybody. But they seem to be the lion's share of everything. And there were very little, like I said, discussion panels. You couldn't just go and listen to people discuss something. They wanted to teach you something or have you participate in some sort of activity.
Right.
And that skews to a younger crowd. Sitting around a table doing sketches and handing them out and sharing your Instagram, really kind of creepy if you got two 60-year-old guys sitting there with a bunch of teenagers.
Right. And I guess the other thing that I really noticed is even though the theme, if you will, kind of lent itself towards the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Plus Goonies. Unlike previous years, like last year, for instance, we were thoroughly entertained by a group of local amateur professional wrestlers.
Yes.
And professional wrestling in general, because there was John Cena and the local amateur wrestling association put on a couple of different demonstrations of their show. So throughout the entire weekend, you would interact with or be able to watch these different shows. And they kept that theming going heavily throughout the entire weekend. I didn't feel the theming this weekend. I really kind of missed that part of it. Right.
Yeah. There was a wrestling thing there, but we didn't stick our head in at all for it.
Right.
Didn't go see any wrestling.
No, the door was always open and we'd walk by and there didn't seem to be much going on in there. But
yeah, we did not walk by and see any wrestling going on. It was always people sitting in the ring being interviewed or doing something. Right. It was weird.
Yeah.
But because we had all of this extra time with no panels that interested us to attend, I decided to use that time to see if I could get a couple of the autographs that I needed.
Correct.
And I was able to get 2 of them. For any who might be interested, I collect a lot of Doctor Who autographs. So Arthur Darvill plays Rory. I was able to get his. And David Morrissey, who played Jackson Lake, but he's also the governor from The Walking Dead. So even though I got his autograph on a Doctor Who card, I talked to him mostly about his character in The Walking Dead to find out if he was hated in real life as much as he was hated by the fans watching him on TV. And the short answer was yes.
Yeah, quite interesting. Yeah, and you didn't have to wait too long in lines for those autographs.
No, not at all. And then another thing we did while we were waiting for the sketch duel to come up on Friday is that we walked over to an author. And you wanted to talk to her, and I wanted to brace myself because she writes about zombies, and we all know how Brian feels about zombies. So I thought you were going to walk up to an author who does zombie novels and tell her what you think about zombies. Like, that's not what you should be doing. But that's not what happened.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think you were pleasantly surprised by my conversation.
Yes.
But to bring it around, as we first walked around and through, and this makes perfect sense to me logically. It dovetails really nicely with our podcast. My passion for authors and Jeff's passion for authors is what got us started with the podcast. And I thought to myself in previous conventions that I've been to, I've spent time talking with authors, self-published usually, because that's the ones that are going to show up at these conventions. And as I was walking through the artist alley, I did see the booth of this one young lady, and I mentioned to Jeff that I really wanted to talk to her about her zombie books.
Yes.
And so I did approach her, and I did not bring up zombies right away.
Nope.
But she turns out her name was A.M. Griever. She's from the Pittsburgh area. Self-published. She wrote a series of books about zombies. And she's written another series of books that are not about zombies.
Right.
And after I got an initial conversation going, I asked her what her motivation was and how zombies became a part of her story. And she told us the story of how she would be in her car and they'd be traveling around with her husband and she would be pitching these ideas. And she said, man, it was so great that I would pitch these ideas to my husband and I'd spend all this time, 20 minutes discussing this whole idea. And he'd go, that really sucks.
Yeah. But what was her genre going into this? It wasn't horror.
No. She wanted to do a love story.
Right. Love story.
A romance story, basically. That's she was talking about doing. And so she pitched these romance stories with humor, sci-fi related, she'd say. And then she'd get all the way through the story and he'd say, that sucks. And she'd say, oh, thank God you told me because I would have written a really lousy book.
Right.
And finally, at one point, she was pitching an idea. And at the end of the idea, she said, what would really make that whole story good is if it had zombies in it.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to open up the conversation about zombies. And I thought it was really interesting because in discussing with her, her zombies are a little more along the lines of iLegend zombies, where they get infected by a genetically mutated or modified tomato. And this tomato product gets distributed throughout the world. And all these people then become zombies after having eaten this tomato product, and this mutated gene infects them. So
yes.
She doesn't have the more typical fashion of zombies where the dead come back to life. They are living and then they become undead.
Right.
So it's funny because Jeff and I have had this conversation about iLegend, how much I appreciate that movie. I really, really like that movie. But it was a really fascinating conversation, and she was very, very good. And I thought what was funny to me is that both of us noticed this as we were walking away from the table after the conversation. Jeff turns to me and said, did she suddenly turn on the F-bomb just for fun?
Right. Yeah, we're having a regular conversation with this regular person who was using absolutely family-friendly language through this whole conversation, and then all of a sudden it was like a switch was flipped, and she started like cursing like a sailor, and I'm not quite sure what happened. Like, what was the motivation? Did she think we'd buy a book if she swore more, or I don't know. It was just odd.
Yeah. No, I got a kick out of it. I think she just became more relaxed in the conversation and maybe reverted to her own self. I'm not really sure, but I did think it was funny. And for her time, I did buy her other book, which is a series called The Ravaged Skies. And it's about basically an EMP, I think, that is a result of a sun flare that destroys all of electronics and all electricity on Earth or something. I haven't finished reading it. In fact, I've only gotten about a chapter through, but I do have to say I was really impressed with the opening first few pages. She really does grab your attention and pull you in quickly.
Oh, so, that's nice.
I'm excited about the opportunity to finish reading this, and it is the first of a series, so I'm interested to see how far she takes this story as I read through it.
Right. Maybe she'll be there next year. You can pick up book 2.
Yeah, that'd be neat if she was.
Well, the last thing that happened on Friday again was the sketch duel. There were a couple of different artists, and what was really nice, because this doesn't happen often, both of them decided that they wanted to see how many different sketches they could do in a single session. So they were just banging out these sketches while talking and answering questions. It wasn't just sit and watch them work. They're talking and sketching, and they almost sketch without looking at the paper. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And it didn't go so well for Bryan, but I did end up winning one of the sketches, and so now I have a Wolverine added to my wall of sketches that is getting larger and larger by the year.
Oh, yeah. There's some beautiful sketches made, and I did feel the obvious jealousy when his number was called.
Yeah. But, yours are just going to go in a drawer.
Oh, I hope not.
Look at all that blank space behind you.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Look at all the space behind me. And it's funny, though, we did talk about that. I think I've come up with a possible solution. I'm thinking about putting a digital frame. In fact, what I'm actually thinking about doing is put 2 digital frames.
Oh, all right.
One horizontal and one vertical, that I'm going to include images of all of the autographed pictures that I have collected throughout the year. Well, I'm sure that the 2 that are there's my Jerry Ryan that sits above my head here. And then just below that is the Voyager group picture that I'm still waiting to get Robert Beltran's signature on.
Right.
Those 2 will remain as they are framed on the wall. But all of the others, pictures that I've collected, well, I still have some decisions to make, because I do have an attachment to the Adam Savage and the Cary Elwes images.
Right.
I may mount them on the wall, but the ones that I've got from, I don't even know the actor's name who plays Q, and
John Delancey.
John Delancey, right. And so many others. I have so many others that I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to take up space on the wall. I mean, I do appreciate that I have them. And of course, the other collection that I have in the card size images, I still think would look really nice if I did a really fine document copy and displayed them in a digital frame.
Yes.
So that I could see them going by. And it's an exciting idea for me. So hopefully that'll fill that space right there. You see the one right there above my finger?
Yeah.
Oh, don't you love podcasts like that?
Yeah, it's not a video podcast. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, there were a couple of things that we considered and maybe did a little bit of checking out on Friday. One of them was I was more curious to see what it was all going to be about. And it was called Cosplay Live Model Drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they just had some guy in a cosplay outfit standing up on the stage, and then a whole bunch of tables around with little pads of papers and colored pencils that you could grab. So they did provide pads of paper and colored pencils, which I thought was very nice, because who's going to wander into something prepared to sit down and draw? But skewed way to a younger audience. And I don't draw, so there was no need. But I was just curious to see what level of artist might be in there, because we like watching the sketch duels. I thought, if there's a couple of good artists, we could check them out too. But no, it was all just a bunch of kids drawing on pads of paper with colored pencils. A couple of things that you were interested in that we didn't even stick our head in was a laser cutting demonstration, which I'm not even quite sure. Is that cutting wood or cutting?
I did actually wander by there at one point. They were cutting small pieces of wood. Yeah, another one was the 3D printing table. They had a 3D printer running that was printing a armor piece.
Right.
That seemed to have been designed to take up the entire 3-day weekend.
Yeah, and then there was something with liquid nitrogen that you were interested in too.
Yeah, but I didn't see that either.
The laser cutting demonstration reminds me of something I saw on the internet. I saw these joke TikToks or Reels or whatever, and I thought it was kind of funny. And it goes along with Star Wars and everything that we were watching there. So they're talking about the lightsabers. And these lightsabers are powerful lasers that can cut through anything except another laser. So it's always fun when you get to think about those things in that way.
Saturday. Oh.
Yes, that started off with a sketch duel.
Yes, it did. Saturdays typically are not our favorite day at these conventions.
No.
Oh, the density of people increases by threefold, I think, by the time that Saturday rolled around. Of course, we had already had our tags, and we parked across the street and walked across the street and down out of the parking lot and basically right into the building, with our tags and back into the group. But even as we were standing there, there was a line that wrapped literally around the convention center in Philadelphia. And if you're not familiar, it's about 3 blocks long, and it came all the way back across that and underneath where the next road came through the line of people get into the show. It was quite impressive.
And to give you a good idea of what it's like, it's an entrance and an exit, so there's only so many places that you can go. But we'll say there's 3 sets of glass double doors that go into the convention center. Mm-hmm. They had 1 set of glass doors that people were going through. And the line going through this single set of glass doors, as you mentioned, went all the way down and around the corner and was unbelievably long. Mm-hmm. So we were coming from the other way. So the line only went one way, and we were coming from the other side, and then we just opened up the door right next to where they were and went in. There's 3 sets of doors, people, going into this massive convention center.
Right.
Utilize them.
Yep. And after you get through the 1 set of doors that they were going through, there were 4 lanes of security things to go through, and everybody was going through the one on the right, and the ones on the left were wide open.
Yeah, So watch for that kind of thing if you attend a local convention. Just because there is a line doesn't mean there needs to be a line.
Right.
But during that first sketch duel of the day that we did not win anything, there was a young lady sitting in front of us that couldn't help but overhear some of our inappropriate humor that we were using. I don't know. We weren't that inappropriate, but it was just... I guess what I laugh at all the time, what they want you to do at these sketch duels is shout out characters or ideas for these artists to draw, which is good. And chances are they'll draw that character or whatever that you're looking for. However, odds are they're then going to give that character that you suggested to somebody else. So I am not going to shout out a character that I'm not interested in, that other people might be interested in, or a character that I would be interested in that nobody else in the room would be interested in. So I'm not usually yelling out suggestions.
Right.
Brian thinks I should yell out my Godzilla every time.
Right. And that was the funny thing, because it turns out during that, I don't remember, I think it might have been the first sketch duel. There was a young lady who believed that the entire sketch duel was designed for her to have a private conversation with the artists.
Yes.
So she had yelled out Gritty as an example of what they might draw.
Yes.
And for those of you who are not familiar, Gritty is the mascot for the Philadelphia Flyers, and he's got a reputation similar to Philadelphia.
Right, okay.
So, and he's a big orange fluffy thing, and it was just funny. So I turned to Jeff and I said to Jeff at that point, I believe, or close to that point, I said, I wonder what the Freebird is
yes.
to these sketch duels. What is the image or song, as in Freebird, that gets repeated most often when they shout out who they want to have drawn?
This year it was Spawn.
Spawn, yes.
Every sketch duel we went to, somebody was yelling out Spawn.
I thought that was funny.
So at the end of that first sketch duel, that young lady that was in front of us with her dad turned around and she was talking about going to this, what they call it, artsocialize.com fast sketch and swap meetup. So she was going to go to this sketch and swap thing and asked if we'd be there. And I'm not saying anything, but Brian kind of implied that we would. And I'm like, well, now we've got to go because she's going to be at the next sketch duel. Going, I thought you said you were going to be there. Well, we stuck our head in. Again, like the other cosplay live model drawing, it skewed way to a young audience. She wasn't there to wave and say hi. She hadn't got there yet, so we just left.
Yeah, I think they were drawing Pokemon characters or something when we walked in there.
Right.
And the idea was to draw a Pokemon character and then share it with your neighbor, and that they would do the same.
Right.
So you and I have sat through a drawing thing before, but in that particular case, we were directed as to how to create the images.
Actually, you did. That was a year that I did not go.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay.
With Joe Wass.
Yeah, right. Joe Wass was the one who did that. And I have some very terrible drawings that I created with his direction, which would have been much, much worse
without it.
had
Yes.
he not given me direction.
So after that was the second sketch duel of the day, of which we attended, had a good time. I think that is the one that they had a substitution for the artist. An original artist who was scheduled couldn't be there. We've not been saying any of these artists because I'm not quite sure who would be known, but just in case, the first sketch duel was Don Aguillo and Jolie Cabral. The second sketch duel, the first one on Saturday, was Drew Moss and Russell Braun. The second duel on Saturday was Miko Suyan and not Nicholas Draper Ivy. I don't know who substituted in because we don't have that listed on the schedule, and they say it so fast and it would take more research than I was willing to put in to track him down and write down his name. But we were pretty much done at the 4:00 hour after that second sketch duel, and we thought about doing a couple of other things. I think we mostly just walked around the vendor area or something. We had seen the Philadelphia's Secret Haunted History last year,
Right.
And it was okay. That was more like the discussion panels that we're used to.
Right.
But again, I don't think there are any new haunted buildings since the last time we went.
No, I don't believe so.
So we opted out of that this time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I want to talk about one of the downfalls of this convention that honestly really did not affect us, but I think was crushing for many, many, many fans.
I believe you're right. I think people were very disappointed about it.
So we had a half hour to kill before a panel, and we're flipping through the schedule, and we saw that Jim Cummings, who is the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and many other beloved characters in animation, was going to be doing a panel. And since we had some time to kill, we thought, let's just go sit down in that panel, and when it's time to go to the next panel, we can just sneak out the back door, but maybe we'll get to hear the Winnie the Pooh voice in the first half hour. We get to this room, and the line in the building was about as long as the line was outside the building to get in. Eventually, one of the security people said, "That's it, folks, the line is full." And I bet there were more people still in line than there were in the room.
Oh, absolutely. It was kind of devastating when you looked at it. They made a large error in not understanding the popularity of that particular event, because there was some kind of no-name thing happening up on the main stage, and that should have been moved, because those people were very disappointed, and it was more people standing in line than got into the one room that they had. And here again, I kind of attribute some of that failure to the fact that they didn't have the whole staff there.
Right.
When that line started and got as deep as it was, there should have been an instant decision made to relocate that program. Back where we were doing the sketch duels, which was way back on the back side of the building, is a small room where they do sketch duels. But between the corner of the building and there's a very large room.
Right.
That's where Cena was last year. And I don't think there was anything going on in that large room. So a decision should have been made by the coordinators to move the venue for that event to a different room, because they were all set up. All the media, everything was already set up in the room. You just walked in and did your thing.
Right.
No matter what that thing was, because there was an IT guy with all the mics and all the cameras, and everything was all set up already. So here, I would attribute that failure to a lack of management at that particular location. But that wasn't the only time that happened on Saturday. Later on, or close to that same time, there was another line going in the opposite direction that was clearly nearly as long.
Right.
And it was for an event where there was an orchestra.
Oh, yes.
That was going to be playing music from anime and comic shows. And it was also very, very popular, but lightly attended because the room again was small.
Right.
A disappointment for those folks that came for those specific fandoms.
So we had a long time to wait to get to, I think, our favorite event of the whole convention. So, Brian, what was our favorite event of the convention that we paid extra for?
We did. It was funny because when I saw it on the schedule, I immediately thought to myself, I wonder if Jeff would enjoy seeing this. And it's funny because, well, we'll talk about the experience. It was the Lord of the Rings themed burlesque show.
Yes.
By the local burlesque artists in the Philadelphia area.
They call it nerdlesque.
Nerdlesque, exactly. Two of the young ladies that were participating in the program were the head of the local troupe. It was funny because burlesque is not as sexual as you might think it would be.
Right.
But it was certainly entertaining, and the participants, the actors and actresses that were in that program did a phenomenal job. The crowd was just incredible. They were really, really good. The people were just supportive and excited and doing all the right things. They were throwing their little crumpled $1 bills and
Right.
shouting and screaming and having a good time. And I was really impressed with the moderator, who did an excellent job of talking about burlesque and the traditions therein. And I was also impressed with the artists.
Right.
They were good. They were phenomenal. Who would you say was your favorite artist?
Well, I mean, it's almost not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young man who played Gollum, and he was all in. I just absolutely admired his commitment to the role.
Mm-hmm.
He was absolutely the most entertaining, the most animated. He put the most into his routine.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, though, and this is I don't want to call it a criticism, but because of his character and the way he did it, he did not have to have a progression in his routine.
Mm-hmm.
Gollum is basically a loincloth character in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And so he basically is in his loincloth from the beginning. He doesn't start out as Smeagol and then become Gollum. He's just Gollum the whole time, so he doesn't have to work in any type of a tease. He's just in the same outfit or costume from beginning to end. It doesn't get less as he goes on because there wasn't more that he could have taken off.
Exactly. But I was really impressed with his ability to embody both Gollum, Smeagol, and himself.
Yes.
And almost seamlessly as he transitioned from one to the other. Because obviously he was, well, not obviously, but he was doing music from the show and contemporary music and other little bits of dialogue stuck in and out of the show. And his transitions were fantastic. His makeup was fantastic too. The mouth was just, it was mesmerizing how he did the mouth and the teeth or whatever. I'm not even sure how he did it, but it was well done. And the ladies did a great job too, but he definitely had the most physicality in his presentation.
So I was going to ask if you had a different favorite.
No, I think you're right. I think he really did a great job. Although I really appreciated the
Sheila.
the young lady with the potato.
Oh, okay, no, not Sheila.
Not
the lady with
Sheila.
the potato.
Yeah, she was amazing with her costume. Sheila was.
Yes,
but this was the Hobbit. The young lady who did the Hobbit. She came out with basically it was like a pillow. It looked like a potato, and the first part of her routine she did a funny little mashup with the words potato and and the feet, the great big floppy feet. I was just laughing the whole time. I thought it was hysterical.
Right. But the Sheila character is the giant spider, and that would be from The Hobbit, I believe.
Right.
And she had the most elaborate costume with a spider body and 6 additional legs all connected to her legs to move at the same time, of which she performed to ZZ Top's She's Got Legs.
Right. And then there was Treebeard.
Yes.
And then the dragon Schmaug. And she did a great job with the wings.
Yes.
And who else was there? Treebeard, Smaug, Gollum, the Hobbit. Oh, there was another gentleman who played from the newer version of the Rings of Power, the elvish character. And Legolas, wasn't there a Legolas?
Yes, yeah. Legolas.
And then the Sauron, the lady who did Sauron at the end was the other one who was the coordinator. And then, of course, they all came out at the end as a group. And But overall, that was definitely a highlight of the weekend, I think, and certainly of Saturday. That whole show was done so well.
Yes.
The biggest confusion, though, I have to admit, we were confused all the way to the end because we bought the tickets. The tickets said 8:30. The schedule, when you went onto the website and the app, indicated that it was 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of the doors, it said it started at 7:15.
Right. So the reality was that the show started at 8:30. The doors opened at 8 o'clock. But I believe they had the room reserved from 7:15 so they could get whatever screens and stuff set up with plenty of time to get ready. Because it was not any kind of elaborate stage or anything, but they had big curtains and they had to get all of their stuff in there and get set up and prepared. So,
right. Yep. But prior to that, we had an awesome meal.
Yes, we did.
So, well before you came out, I started doing a little bit of interviewing of my friends and family to try to come up with a place to eat near the convention center, because I knew on Saturday for sure the two of us would probably end up going out from the convention center and having something to eat. And I inquired a lot of different places. In the past, you and I have gone to a bar out there, a tavern rather, that was pretty good. Then my wife has a coworker whose family was in the restaurant business for many, many years. And she suggested that we go to a place in Chinatown called Lee Ho Fook's. The Werewolves of London.
Different Lee Ho Fook's, though.
Oh, yes. The Lee Ho Fook's in the Werewolves of London is in Soho. But this one's in Chinatown in Philadelphia. Coincidentally or not, we're not sure, the restaurant opened the same year that the song came out.
Right.
But Lee Ho Fook in Chinese refers to the happy mouth or the lucky mouth or something along those lines. So it's, in theory, I guess, a common name for a Chinese restaurant, but
yes,
it was nice. It was a short walk from the front of the convention center,
very
to
short
the back
walk,
quarter, and we were able to walk in, sit down, and enjoy an incredible meal. I mean,
yes.
excellent Chinese food. Fortunately, there was plenty left over, and we walked back to the car. We put it in the cooler that I'd already pre-packed with ice.
Yep.
And took the balance back to the house when we left later that night.
Right.
So if you happen to be in Chinatown in Philadelphia, don't forget to go to Lee Ho Fook's and get yourself a big dish of walnuts and shrimp.
Okay. Not beef chow mein. And this was not a paid endorsement.
Oh, gosh, that's fun.
Well, that brings us to the final day, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very relaxing day because we didn't do very much. I think we did a lot of resting between panels in the Ultimate Lounge more than walk the vendor area for the umpteenth time.
Absolutely. But one thing I do want to mention is that when we did see Ted, we saw him on Saturday.
Yes.
And that's when you commissioned him.
Right.
To do some work for you.
To do 6 hitchhiker's cards for me.
Right. I was really excited about the way that you did that. You handed him pages of notes from the book.
Yes.
That literally described the character.
Correct.
He took out sections from the book itself and got the descriptions. And unfortunately, this is the second time he'd attempted doing this.
Yes.
And I bring that up because it is relevant to the story. And I'll let him tell you some of that. But what I was excited about was he gave them to Ted and said, Ted, I want you to make these cards for me, these illustrated cards, without much additional direction. In fact, very little additional direction. Ted's already familiar with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy environment, so he was familiar with the characters. I was excited by the way you did that.
Yeah, I was thinking that is the easiest way to have somebody get, I don't know how to phrase this other than to say what they should be versus what you end up seeing on the TV screen or in the movies, because Arthur is Arthur. You can't really mess up. Ford, he did use a movie influence because he was not ginger-haired, and that's part of Ford, but it's an excellent depiction of Ford, but more of a movie version. The Zaphod is out of this world.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We haven't even gotten a chance to discuss that part, but on Sunday, we went back and picked up how many of the cards that he had finished?
4 of the 6, yes.
4 of the 6. And they are spectacular.
Yes.
And his work is just phenomenal. Without any prompting, and apparently we really didn't even know this, he had done some lettering in comic books before. The bubble art with the words in it and that kind of thing. And he added wording
yes.
to the images, and it was 100% spot on.
Right. This is a discussion that we've probably had many times, not about this, but just in kind of the would you rather thing. All the fans get upset about a property and a direction they've gone in that they're unhappy about. So would you rather have nothing? Well, on the psychology behind it is that the fans, they don't know what they want. They recognize what they don't want.
Right.
But if the fan tried to say, this is exactly what I want, and you did it, they wouldn't like it. But if you can go outside the box and do something unique that fits into their property that they like, then they're ecstatic.
Right.
But you don't know what's going to necessarily trip their trigger, so to speak, when you start doing it. So I wasn't going to art direct Ted as into what to draw. Now I want Arthur standing in a 3/4 pose, holding a cup of tea. Here's the description in the book.
Right.
Interpret him for me. Here's Ford. Interpret him. Here's Trillian. Interpret her. Here's Marvin. Interpret. Here's Zaphod. Interpret. And then I decided that I wanted to try and get a Fenchurch picture done. So the Trillian and Fenchurch, he has not finished by the time the convention ended. So he will be sending those to me soon, and I can't wait.
Right. And I'm sure that you're going to, in some form or fashion, allow our dedicated listeners to take a peek at what you got at some point in the near future.
Well, I can certainly put them up on Instagram, but we've been doing that since the beginning, and when I look back at my Instagram and I see 0 views, it's like, well, why are we doing it? So I'm keeping them for myself. You can't see them. Just have to assume and take our word that they're great.
They are great. They are great. Back to Sunday.
Yes. Well, aside from the Wolverine that I won in the first day of the sketch duel, I have been wanting a Warrior Nun to go up on my wall as well. So I did find an artist and had just a bust shot of the Warrior Nun sketch for me, and completely happy with that up on my wall already.
Great.
And that will be one more thing that I am not going to put on Instagram. Unless I hear otherwise from somebody out there that says, please, I want to see these cards.
Right.
Then I will happily put them on there.
Right.
But nobody goes to our Instagram.
On Sunday, we did attend 2 more sketch duels.
Yes, we did.
And one of the sketch duels, there was an artist named Hannah.
Right. Scott Hannah.
And he was incredible. Apparently, he's a colorist mostly.
Right.
Inking, I think they call that. Something like that.
Well, inking and coloring are two different aspects.
Oh, okay. Right. So the coloring part is what he
Right.
primarily does. And he was fast. Beautiful. He did it Poison Ivy. It was amazing.
Yes.
I was dying for that, but obviously did not win.
Right.
But he did some beautiful, beautiful work, and very, very quickly. In fact, both of the artists in the first one did a couple of different images. In the last one, there was a very young man who subbed in, I think, maybe, also. Do you have names for the ones that were supposed to apply on Sunday?
Yeah, well, the artist that was with Scott Hanna was Ken Wheaton, and he
Oh,
does
that
a
was
lot
him, yeah.
of Simpsons.
Oh,
stuff.
right. I liked
So
his version of
He did a Poison
too.
Ivy as a Simpsons character, and
Yep.
he did a Peter Parker as a Simpsons character.
Right. That was good. And then the last two were...
One is called Sway Arts and Kevin Delgado.
Okay. Much more in the more traditional fashion. They only did 2 images apiece. And the younger man, I say younger, he was fresh out of college or so, I think, was much, much slower to do his work. But what I thought was really interesting, of course, the way they've done this, and I think we've discussed it before, there's a camera pointed down towards the sketch, and you can literally watch them as they're sketching.
Right.
And he used the very, very traditional sketching approach where you draw essentially a stick figure with ovals and circles and that kind
Right.
of thing. And then you fill in the art from there. So I did really enjoy watching him work and was fascinated by the work that he completed in the end. But his partner, I believe it was his partner who was doing it. He's doing his ink work, and gets it all done. And then he starts doing the shading. Or really, they're not really getting into shading so much because they're just using pen and pencil or
Right.
magic markers, that kind of thing. But he goes to start using his magic markers, and I turned to Jeff and I was just amazed because in 6 strokes he changed this one-dimensional picture into a 3-dimensional image,
Right.
with 6 fast little strokes of his pencil. And I'm like, I was floored. It's amazing, the talent of these individuals. And at that point, he was actually talking about how he would rotate the page so that his natural movement of his hand could be reflected in the direction of the stroke that he was making to
Right.
emphasize the shape or the size of the image that he was creating. Fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. More than the stories that they tell of how they got into business and the thing they like to draw the least, when they actually keep the paper under the camera and you can watch the image appear from nothing and sometimes from garbage. Like you'll be looking up there and you're like, oh, well, this guy's not very good. And then with 5 more lines, like, oh, how was that in there?
Oh my gosh. But again, neither one of us scored another image that day.
Nope.
But while you were getting your final autograph for the day, which I know we're going to talk about, the last thing we're going to talk about here.
Right.
While you were waiting in line for that final autograph, I endeavored to continue my search for self-published artists.
Oh, all right.
And I walked up to a gentleman, and I don't know if you saw him, or I spoke to you a little bit about him, but I don't know if you actually saw the gentleman there. But intimidating doesn't even match what happens when you walk up to this guy. He's sitting behind a regular, 6 foot, 8 foot table, and he's got books laid out on the table. To describe him, he's got either, I can't remember what he had. He might have had, I don't know if he had a shirt on underneath, but he's wearing a corset-like thing that accentuated his upper body. And he had a mohawk with a goatee that was painted purple.
Okay.
And he looked like the biggest football player you'd ever seen in your life, and just had piercing eyes. Okay. And, to be frank, I was a little intimidated before I even walked up to his table.
Right.
And I did. I went up, introduced myself, and I asked him, what his story was. And his name is Anthony F. Pepe. And he lived in the Bronx from when he was young till when he was 18 years old. And then he went about his life from there. He lives in New Jersey. He donates the money that he gets to a organization that supports abused women. And his story is about his life with victims of abuse. He apparently didn't really realize it when he started out life that he was somehow attracted to women who apparently had been abused in the past. And he became very protective of those people. And he is a poet, and he is an artist. And you should see the picture on the cover of his comic book. Again, you imagine this very intimidating character with a purple goatee. He's wearing a kilt, high leather boots, gloves, and a panda purse.
Yeah.
Around his waist. You know, it was a fascinating conversation. Obviously, he is tormented by the abuse that women have been put to and has dedicated his life to supporting their story and trying to protect them. He is let's see, how do they describe it? A punk rock singer, warrior, protector.
Yes. Okay.
And his character, as the other character in his story, is Vic. And Vic, as in he is Vic, I guess, and she is Viv. And Viv is a female detective, works in vice and sex crimes. And they have a cohort that they work together to protect women against domestic abusers. It was a fascinating conversation. I didn't want to cry in front of the guy.
You're right.
But it was very emotional. I mean, he's very, very emotional. It was quite interesting. But I bought a copy of his book of poetry. And he has, there's another gentleman, Tori Morgenstein, is the other author within this book.
Okay.
And these poems are very strong. You can feel the emotion that he has within the lyric of the poem. Let's see, I have one here if you don't mind.
Sure.
This one's called I See by Anthony F. Pepe. I can see the words in your eyes before you speak them. I can hear the words in your breath before you think them. I can see the monkeys on your back before you feel them. I can feel the load you carry by the way you walk. I can hear the words that hurt you in the way you talk. I can see the shame you feel on the clothes you wear. I can see your fears weigh your shoulders down. I think volumes about your frowns. I see things in little things about you that you didn't know were your things. I hear things and feel things surround you that made you put that wall around you. It's time you put those things behind you and let me remind you that the sun shines bright and there is love all around you.
Very good.
Yeah. And this is just obviously one of the many dozens of poems that's within the book. But I supported him. I bought a copy of his book, and I'm glad he's a local artist protecting women in the state of New Jersey.
Because traditionally, we only do profoundly bad poetry on this podcast.
I know, and I was not hoping. But I was thinking that, but as I read through his work, he's got some very deep thoughts. And some very, very strong emotions. I mean, I do have to say that some of his other poems, it's not of a graphic nature, but you can feel the graphic feeling that he has for this particular passion.
Yes. Well, the autograph that I was standing in line for while Bryan visited the purple mohawked poet was David Tennant, the 10th Doctor from Doctor Who. And we've seen him 2 years ago, but I did not get his autograph at that time. But this time I decided to, and he is extremely nice, gracious, generous man, and got his autograph. And then at the end of the day, we got to see him in his panel.
Right. That was fascinating to me because when you and I saw him a few years ago, I got an autograph for my son, Jason, and I don't recall anything other than walking up to the table, paying for the autograph, walking up to the autograph table, getting the autograph, and leaving. But on Saturday,
right,
when we thought, well, maybe we'll just work his autograph into Saturday, we walked up to the table area, and the little zigzag was full. There was a group of maybe 20 or so people on the outside of the table waiting to get into the zigzag. And what I didn't realize immediately, but soon realized later, there was a large split in the room and then a line that wrapped all the way back to the back side of the convention center waiting for autographs.
Yeah.
Which
it was
sponsored a lot of fear, didn't it?
Yes. Well, I think I signed up for a Saturday autograph for him just with that. If I miss that one somehow, there's always Sunday because he's there for the 2 days. But then when you decide, I'm just going to wait until Sunday, there's always that possibility of something coming up.
Right.
But it didn't, and everything went well. But there's always that fear, and I was not going to wait in that line. That's a tough part of these conventions. If you schedule too many autographs from popular celebrities, there's a good chance that your entire convention will be waiting in lines.
Be standing in line. Yep, absolutely. So anyway, what we decided was to get there early on Sunday. To get there on time on Sunday, really, technically, and go immediately to the autograph line.
Right.
And by the time we got to the autograph line, there was already, 7 or so zigzaggies in the zigzaggy part of the line. And while you were waiting in line, I was curious. So I went up to the coordinator lady and said, I noticed that you were here yesterday. And when we were here and we saw that line going clear out to the end of the convention center, man, he must have been signing forever. And she said, oh, no, he wasn't. He was about an hour, and he was through that entire line. And both Jeff and I, actually, when I related that to Jeff, he's like, oh, yeah, sure, it was about an hour. That's line. Just the corporate line. There, exactly. That's what you said. The corporate line, that's just a lie. There's no freaking way he got through that line. And then, so because I had to wait, I wandered across the hall, and I asked a different individual, were you here yesterday? Oh, yeah. And I said, did you see that line for David Tennant? Oh, yeah. And she said, do you know how long it took him to get through that line? He said, yeah, it was about 45 minutes, I think. He had that whole line done. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. So I walked back over to where you were, Jeff, and I said, yeah, I've got a second verification. They said 45 minutes they got through that whole line. And it was, at that time, I think it was like, about 10:15. And David Tennant had not been there yet. And that's when I went across the way, talked to the gentleman with the mohawk, went downstairs, sat downstairs, and it was an 11 o'clock time was the start time for the sketch duel. And I got downstairs probably about 20 after or so, sat down, and you showed up 20 minutes later. You showed up before they came in to start the sketch duel and sat down next to me.
Yep.
So when he did show up, you have no idea about how long you waited, but it couldn't have been that long, right?
No, once he started going, it moved pretty quickly. And if it's set up right and they can get everybody moving in line, a 20-second conversation with an individual can be an eternity. Nobody's going to spend a minute and a half, 2 minutes, or shouldn't, talking to somebody. Come in, say your little piece, thanks, get out. So if he can do 3 autographs a minute, you know, he can do, 180 people in an hour. And 180 people is a long line. And I'm sure that line wasn't that long.
No. But, that was quite the interesting experience with David Tennant.
Yeah, yes. Almost as interesting as his panel.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't that fun?
Yes.
Last thing of the day.
Last thing of the convention, really.
Right. And what did they do? They started off by
talking about his socks and whether or not he had holes in his socks. So he took off his shoes to see if he had holes in his socks. He did not.
Oh my gosh. No, he did not. I thought it was interesting because how in the world did they have like a Scottish interviewer? Where does she come from?
I have to believe that she may travel with him.
Maybe. That was interesting because in the lady that we saw interview Sean Astin,
right?
We've seen her a number of times.
Yeah, previous years.
With FanEXPO. Yeah, she's been a part of the FanEXPO team forever. And she does a phenomenal job. But this young lady that was with David Tennant was from Scotland, and they talked about Scottish things. And my favorite part of that discussion was he had to reach into a bag, and I don't know why she called it a chicken bag.
Rubber chicken bag. I don't know.
Something like that. And pull out a card that had like a suggestion for a question or a question in it. And one of the questions was, you've had experience with all kinds of different foods. What is it that you like about American food? Of course, they talked about a cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. But when David was pressed, he said his favorite thing was peanut butter.
Yes.
And the way that the Americans use peanut butter in everything, including their delicious candies.
And that sounds a little bit misleading because candies is a natural place for peanut butter.
I think
peanut butter shows up in whiskey. Peanut butter shows up in all kinds of things that should not have peanut butter in them. Yet they do.
Yep. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yes, very good. The title of the panel, I think, is something like All Things Timey-Wimey, referring to Doctor Who. And they really did very little discussion on Doctor Who.
Right.
But if you're listening to a discussion about Doctor Who, you're going to hear him retell things he said a million times at many different conventions. To just watch them have fun and riff off each other and talk about their own shared experiences with Scottish food and potato scones or whatever. Apparently, David talked about a potato scone and scoring it and putting peanut butter on it, and it was his gift to us, he said. I don't remember exactly his recipe, but...
Yeah, it was. It sounded very good, though, didn't it?
Yes. However, we walked away from this convention a little confused if we were going to immediately buy our tickets like we've done in the past for the next convention.
We did. It would be a tragedy not to attend again.
Yes.
But on the other hand... I'd hate to have our experience continue to diminish over time.
Right. Well, you can't walk away from it after one bad experience. It has to be
That's true.
Multiple. Like if it's like, oh, they're done. Like I'd even say the 2 in a row might end it, but just one, and it wasn't that bad. There were a lot of disappointing things, but it wasn't a total waste of time.
No, I had a great weekend, primarily because I was able to spend the day with you, and we talked at great length on Sunday about a lot of weird and varied conversations while we had time to wait.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I always enjoy.
We always have those no matter where we are.
Yeah, from robots to zombies
Yeah.
to spaceships, sitting there just chewing the fat and talking about everything that life has to offer is one of my favorite things to do. So I really appreciated the opportunity to get together and to attend another convention.
Yep.
And I will have to say, overall, I felt it was a positive event, despite its obvious flaws.
Right. Well, you like to come out here also when you can, and there is a Chicago convention in August, and if you can come out for that, that'll be great. But one of the newer things that they have added to the Ultimate package, which kind of sealed the deal of why I wanted to do it, is that if you buy an Ultimate package for one event, you can use your badge for a single day ticket, not Saturday, but a Sunday or a Friday or a Thursday ticket at another convention. I always look at the Chicago convention, and sometimes there are celebrities that are there that I want an autograph from. And if there's multiple ones, I've got to buy an admission ticket for Sunday to go there and stand in line to get all of my autographs, and it's not a fun day. But
No.
if I have free admission, it makes those autographs so much easier to get. So I am as sure as I can be that on Sunday during the August convention, I will be heading over there to get a couple of autographs. But but if you come out, we might be doing a 3-day thing.
That's true. So that's what we have going on in the future. And do we know what's going to happen next, Jeff?
No, but I just want to say this before we get off of the Fan Expo thing, because we've just done this now. So I, in my email, just got my tell us what you think email from Fan EXPO Philly.
And they may regret that.
Well, I'm not going to yell at them for things that are out of their control. I'll point out a bunch of things that they already know. But here is a suggestion that I want to make. Okay, Fan Expo Philly, we know that your designated color for the Philly show is green. We get it. We all get it. Green. When I open up your app and I am looking for events, I would love it if your events were color-coded in type of event it is.
Right.
Rather than every single one be green.
Right. That's true.
If everything that was autographs and photo ops that they have on the schedule was all one color, I could not look at all of those. If all of the workshops were one color, you could check out what workshops there were. If there were meetups, if there were whatever, if it was color-coded and you're trying to look at the schedule and quickly decide what you're interested in, if it was color-coded by type of event, you would have a much better chance of finding things that just get blended in and lost in the sea of green that is the Fan Expo Philly schedule.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Okay, Jeff, so what's next?
Well, Brian, we're going to do a Would You Rather Star Trek edition. And that is going to be long.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing.
So, Brian, now that we know what's happening next time, I think I'm going to say that this is the end. Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea, and our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This has been a Fruits for Thought production, darling. This has been a Fruits for Thought production, darling. This has been a Fruits for Thought production, darling. This has been a Fruits for Thought production, darling. This has been a Fruits for Thought production, darling.